Good evening. Um, so as I normally like checking with everybody, um, as I normally check in with everybody, I just want to know, is there anything that you guys need clarity about that we've spoken about in the past and you've gone, you've read, you've done your own research and you're like, no, Khatumi, this thing you said doesn't add up. Is there something that you want us to talk about before we talk about what we want to go into today? Does anybody have anything to say so far? We've talked about some theories. I'm going to add one more today. So if anybody has any questions. Okay, so.
All right, you can comment. You can go on.
All right. I'm also tried the So when we started, I said that I'm not going to go, around what we've discussed in the past. I'm sorry if you, this is the first time you're joining. You can watch the recording or something. Okay, so when we started this whole stuff, I was like, oh, let me see the course outline, and finally somebody shared the group. And looking at the course outline now, I'm seeing some stuffs that I have already taught, the theories and how it was stated in the course outline. So in course outline, it is development paradigms and competing perspective. And we have already discussed modernization as a theory. We've talked about underdevelopment school, that's dependency school. We've talked about globalization, that's neoliberalism. And today, I want to talk about the Chinese model theory. That's what I want to talk about. And also the classical Marxist school or debate, the classical Marxist debate and the Chinese model. I'm not really clear on the critical model, so I really don't want to talk about it until I understand it properly. So adding to what we talked about earlier on, the world systems theory, dependency, modernization, I'm just going to add this to it so we know that we are done with this topic. So I'm going to start with the classical Marxist debate. And this simply talks about, according to, like the Marxist theory, Karl Marx, and what he stands for, right? So the Marxist idea is, it consists of two things. The first one is social class, and the second thing is the control of means of production, stating that for a country to be developed, people must be in different social class, one, and secondly, they should have control of the means of production. So it's stating that the dynamics of development and the relationship between dominant classes must exist. There must be that structure for development for us to actually say that development will take place. And it also talks about like mode of production, the elites, and the struggle for power. So when I was talking about all those other theories, I talked about conflict theory, and Karl Marx's debate is a good example of how you can expatiate on what this classical Marxist debate is talking about. So it's simply talking about conflict. That's for us to say that, or for us to make a case that a nation is developed or underdeveloped or is in the process of development, that needs to be there because it shows us progress. So having that kind of structure in society shows us progress and it shows us growth, and it warns us about consequences if we take a specific policy or a specific action. It just shows us all that differences. That if we don't have those class struggles, or if there is no if there's no reaction to issues that the state is trying to amend, then we cannot really, hang on that conversation of development, or development cannot, really take place. We'll just be in plain state, right? So I can only say girls are not going to school because, of course, there is difference in class. If everybody's coming from a rich room, everybody's going to school, there'll be nothing left for us to talk about. So that's what that is. That's what that development paradigm is all about. The classical Marxist debates. That's what it's talking about. Class system, class, and the control of means of production or factors of production. Then I'm going to move to the Chinese model. So the Chinese have their own unique way of doing stuff, right? So the Chinese model is saying that not all countries, you guys are saying that Westernization is what we need, right? That's looking at modernization theory, dependency theory, looking at all those theories, and stating that you want all the countries in the world to embrace democracy, free market, and capitalism. It's not possible. We have our own unique Chinese history, Chinese culture, Chinese tradition, Chinese civilization too, which is also in history. That our own is also unique to us. And we're going to create a model of development that works for us. And that's why when you hear experts in development field talking about development and China comes up, there is always this, the tone of the debate actually changes. Because remember the first time we had this study group, and I told you guys that when they're talking about development, there are some countries that you just be confused. They have really, rich population and very poor population as well. And I used China as an example and also India as an example. So with India, you can make a case with the caste system. But in China, they don't have that caste system. So what's going on? So they have two economies in one country. So people say, okay, what is the China model for development? And for the Chinese, they were like, the Western model, the modernization and all that we've said that, okay, everybody should go to school, and are flawed by three generic things. The first thing is that human beings are not rational. That modernization theory is saying that, oh, everybody goes to school, everything will be all good and everybody, but human beings are not rational. We should not, tag human beings as rational, because we are emotional and sometimes we are careless. So if we now believe that, oh, let's send everybody to school and therefore people will know the right things to do. And one of the concerns of sociologists when we are talking about development is prebendalism, which we talked about last time, is also a problem in, like, for these Chinese people looking at the modernization theory, that prebendalism will occur because human beings are not rational. Don't say because they went to school or because we are providing good welfare that there will be no corruption in the system. It will still happen. The second thing is modernization theory and other theories states that human rights are absolute, and that if we embrace if we embrace the system and the policy that comes with it, everybody can gain from it. So what I'm trying to say is that under capitalism, right, human rights are absolute, and it says that there's a free level ground that everybody can excel. So meaning that if we adopt this modernization theory, if we adopt this theory of development that you guys have earlier stated, every other person, that comes into our system have the chance of making wealth for themselves. But that's not true. According to the China policy, states that everybody's life comes with its own responsibility. So if you like, if you're saying that, oh, because you're a human being in this system, or because you're a citizen of Nigeria, you are going to excel, that's not true. Because that's what modernization is saying. When they make a statement that says that, oh, because the government creates welfare, you can tag them as developed. But China is saying that that's not true, because guess what? There are families that are made up of 3 people, family of 5 people, and everybody has different responsibility. There are people that give birth to children with disability. That already changed the dynamic of that family. And that's why, looking at the course outline and seeing what comes before the other, it's actually good that we talk about these core concerns of sociology before we get to this point, because last week we were talking about, okay, there is poverty, absolute relative poverty. We're talking about social class, the income of the family, all those things that affect decisions that are being made in development. So that's what this is talking about. Then you cannot say everybody comes with his or her own responsibility. Then the third flaw about other, development theories, that it lays so much emphasis on procedures. When we're talking, we're saying, oh, there have to be like a national strategy. There have to be like a national plan. It's almost looking like it has to be endorsed by the Western nation, like countries that we've tagged as Western. So the US, it has to be endorsed by the UK, it has to be endorsed by the US. That countries need to look at their inner capacity as a system and also say, you know what, this is what we can do. No, don't rush us into development. This is how we can create our own, development one step at a time. So after all this is being said, there are also 2 key, issues with American democracy that the Chinese model actually points at. The first one is that America is not even fit to be a structure for development for other countries, that are struggling. Because number one, America is the most unequal country in the world, right? So some people are just wealthy, and like, even with the American dream and all that, there's still a difference in class and there's still a difference in class and a difference in the way people live. There are some people that no matter how they struggle, they will still be poor. We need to acknowledge that and stop holding on to America as, being modern. The second thing is that America is also the most insecure country in the world, stating that we have the gun violence, we have all these things, and yet we are saying that we should take the model. Remember that one of the issues that modernization have is that you cannot just take the beliefs and the ways of, a country into your own. And when I was talking about the theories, I talked about the symbolic interaction, conflict theory, and also structural functionalism theory. And remember that when you're taking these cultures and saying that everybody needs to go to school and all that stuff, you're also taking their institution and putting it in your own country. So this Chinese model is stating that if you're saying that you are going to take American culture, remember 2 things: that America is an unequal country and also very insecure. So if we're going to just copy and paste and not looking at our uniqueness, then it's a problem. So what is China development model, right? So according to Zhang, he defines China as a rising civilization state and argues that as such, it should not accept the Western political model, right? The China model differs from traditional socialism, mainly in its use of market system in the economy. So there is no, key definition to what the Chinese model is, but it has 4 corners, or let's say 4 perspectives to it, or 4 focus, anyhow you want to understand it. Number 1, the China model is state-led development model, meaning that to be sure that the state still plays a significant role in the economic growth of the nation, it has to be state-led. It has to be state-driven. It should not be influenced by international bodies. They have to be independent in their decisions and their policy towards their states. Now, it has to, for them, it has to attract significant amount of foreign direct investment. So when we're learning in our economics class, they talked about foreign direct investment, and it has to become a large trading country. So you see China opening their borders to people that, want to do things in production. You see, even the t-shirts we're wearing, like all those t-shirts, BYC kind of t-shirts, they are mass production. They are made in China and they are brought back into Nigeria. Now, China have said, you know what, these are our strategy for development. Everybody will be able to eat. We understand that there will be difference in class. But at the same time, we are going to make a system where, our economy will still be high up there, and it has to be state-driven. There are so many, points that you can build on that. And according to French Hen, I will share this article with you guys so that you can read it better. He says that China does not have a competitive political party system, and it does not seek to strategically regulate certain sectors of the economy, meaning that as it's state-led and state-driven, it's already fixed. We are not thinking that, oh, APC will come tomorrow and change something. PDP will come tomorrow and change something. Ideologies are different. We are not thinking about it in that direction. They already know that, okay, when it comes to political stability, they're somewhere, in an okay phase, even if what they do is not, 100% acceptable by the people, but it is working for them. They understand that model, and they're saying that countries should do the same. They should fight for their vested interests. The second focus for China, the Chinese model, is development as a top priority. That's, yes, we understand the whole liberalism and all those stuff, but there's an aftermath of all of that. We cannot just give everybody a chance to come and free markets in our country. It's not possible. So for many in China, electoral democracy is not just suitable for all nations, right? So these developing countries, including China, need stability and economic development before they can afford luxury of liberal democracy. So for them, they're not even at that point yet where they should even be thinking about opening their stuff. So for them, they need to put together, not that they're not giving people political freedom, right? But for them, everything they do is for their development, for their good. No matter how you want to see it, it must be for the best interest of China. No matter the deal you're bringing, no matter the deal they're having with another country. So development as a top priority, that's another focus. The third focus is good governance. So they looked at Singapore and Lee Kuan Yew and said, this worked for them. We can actually have something, because if you think about it, democracy in other nations or in the West have not really helped to do anything. Instead, it has continued creating that divide that make, development an issue or a topic to be discussed. It has always been because of all this change of power. So APC today, PDP tomorrow. So they are saying that no, let's focus on good governance as well. Let's let people know that if they are corrupt, this is the consequences. It happened in Singapore. It can also happen in China. So they have, their rules and regulations around that to promote, good governance and to promote good governance, and that's what they want. Then the fourth one is gradual and pragmatic reforms. We know that China is not 100%, developed when we look at the HDI and all those other factors. But we're not going to rush into it. We're not going to say, you know what, Operation Eradicate. No, we acknowledge that these people are here. Okay, So they acknowledge that these other groups or these other people, like set of people, are in their country. So they are willing to create reforms that are flexible. So the China model is stating that we should also have flexible model. And lastly for that is also stating that this is not a focus, but this is just like to wrap it up. It's also stating that underdeveloped countries should not just look to the West for development, but also like create their solutions within, unique to their traditions and their culture. That's what Chinese model is stating. Am I clear on all of those?
If if you are done with the Chinese model, I want you to go back to this critique at the Marxist something. Then there are one or two questions I may ask there, because you said it's a debate. What are the purpose of the debate? What is the aim of the debate? Then in the conflict theory you talked about, though I was not around when you talked about it. So if there's a conflict, is conflict in the sense that these people are saying, no, we cannot follow this model, or it is not possible to follow such and so model, that people suppose, as you're saying in this Chinese zone, that people are supposed to do things differently based on their environment or the way it suits them. So what are the aim or the purpose of that critical debate, the Marxist debate, and the conflict theory?
Okay. You say you were not in the last when I talked about. I'm trying to pull it up on my system so that I can share my screen of what I have so that you can follow. Just give me a moment.
Okay.
How did I share this? This.
You can talk about it. If you don't want to share, you can just talk, no problem.
No, I want to share. Sociology of the world. Okay. So you asked 3 questions, and I'm just gonna say, what there were. The first thing you asked is, I should go back to the classical Marxist debate. Yeah. The second thing that you said was the conflict theory. You want to understand how it relates, right?
Yeah.
I didn't get the third one.
The third one, now, you're telling us about the Chinese saying that people should do things according to the way it suits them for development. There's no need following modernization and all whatnot. I said, is it their own belief or their ideology that caused the debate? Or is it their own ideology that brought about this conflict theory of a thing? So where did this conflict theory from?
Okay, good. Okay. I want to join Zoom on my laptop. So Razak, please, can you enable screen sharing?
Okay, Yahweh, are you not there? Consumery.
Razak, is Razak sleeping?
Marrying many wives is a problem. Maybe he has gone to attend to one of them.
Okay, let's see if it will launch. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the classical Marxist theory while we wait for him to see if he will be here. So according to that debate, we know who Karl Marx is, right? Let me start from there. Mr. Isaac, we know who Karl Marx is, right?
Yes, the man who is more interested in the welfare cooperative and government doing something instead of the thing allowing it to be in the hand of capitalism and all whatnot. The Marxists.
Okay.
Is Karl Marx not capitalist sociology philosopher?
Because this Karl Marx and Max Weber, but I think Marxism is Karl Marx, is it?
No, Marxism is
Weber.
Is it Weber? I don't even know any. So confusing. No, is Max Weber is Marxism, I think. Yeah, Karl Marx is
No, Karl
Karl
Marx
Marx
is Marxism or is
capitalist.
Karl Marx.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
in his course outline, he also listed a lot of scholars, like 11, that we should know about. So I'm going to sweat it if I check now and I see that Karl Marx is there.
Okay.
Okay, he's there. All right. So Karl Marx, right? When you think about Karl Marx, what should come to mind is bourgeoisie's proletariats. That's the first thing that should come to mind. And he's simply talking about struggle of class.
The rich and the poor.
Exactly. Karl Marx, he focuses on the factors of production, right? And he has already stated that it should belong to a certain class, right? There should be that division. So anytime you just hear Karl Marx, that should just be the thing that should come to mind.
Sorry. When you talk about class struggle, somebody who said that, look, because you're talking of the bourgeoisie and the proletariat means the means of product, the organs and the workers. So which of them now, I beg, somebody should help. I'm not with my book. Which of them now says that government should not leave means of production in the hands?
So which of the theories states that government should not
individuals, that is capitalism, that government should do what we call with where government in Marxism.
Can you guys see my screen from beginning?
It's coming up.
I've not finished this slide, so I might not show you guys everything. I'm sorry. Slideshow, let's do this.
Because I know Marxism said the cause for class struggle, the cause for all this struggle is because that capitalism encourages the rich becoming richer while the workers are getting poor, because government left everything in the hand of individual for means of production. So on that basis, that this struggle must continue. So that government should encourage.
My laptop is hanging. Can you guys hear me?
We are hearing you now.
Okay.
Please continue. You are explaining Marxism, Abi. Chief.
Hello?
Are you explaining Marxism? Please continue.
Yes. And that's what I want to say, because I want to get it clear. You know, there's a conflict we want to treat, there's a debate we want to treat, and we're talking about Karl Marx.
Okay.
Now, I want to, because sometimes this Karl Marx and Max Weber, sometimes one becomes confused on which one is not which one, you know. But I know Marxism, when we talk about Marxism centers more on the welfare, everything about welfare of the workers. And Marxism says that it's because government allowed capitalism, that means of production in the hands of few, that between the bourgeois and the proletariat, so which means organ and workers. So that is the cause of class struggle, because those workers, we want to struggle to be like those organs, because those organs are getting richer while the workers are getting poorer. So that this is the reason why there is a class struggle, and this is why there's always problem in the international system. That what what government needed to do is to create what we call a cooperative where government will solve most of the problems of the individuals, then their means of production will be in the hand of government. Then all the things that people needed, the government will do it for them. It will reduce this quest for marks of wealth or getting wealth too much that people are doing. So that's what Marxism is talking about. That if government can bring it down and government are doing the necessary things and means of production are not in the hands of some people, all this class struggle, I want to be rich like you, I want to be this, causing trouble in the system, that it will stop. That's what Marxism says.
You're actually right. And for this conversation, so we need to know when, Max Weber's conversation and all, like we need to know the class we are using it for. So when we are talking about political sciences, it's different. When we are talking about, economics, like the debates we are going to be having based on all these things, they will change a little bit in the context of which we're having this argument. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay. That's exactly what I wanted you to clear us, so that when somebody will be talking, he will know the basis or the ground or the angle he's coming to make his own argument. Because as you said now, if you use the argument of international politics to come in social development, we may not be getting it right. So that is what we want to know from you. Okay.
So I'm actually happy that you're asking these questions, because I'm very sure maybe some people needed to clarify this as well. So now, before I started talking about modernization dependency theory, because I know that conversations like this will come up, I said that as a sociologist, there are three major theories that if you see yourself struggling in the hall, that almost, I don't know what to write, I don't know what's going on here, these three theories will stand in for you at that point, and you can make a case out of it. If they say, oh, why is development, you can use this and explain development. Now, the first thing I said is structural functionalism theory. And if you look at modernization theory, it has a functionalism aspect to it. That, oh, if we collect the institutions in America or countries that we've tagged as Western, will be developed. That's a good example. I'm going to talk about structural functionalism. I'm going to talk about these three for anybody that was not there before, so that you have an idea of what's going on. Chief, would that help?
Now it will help. Now go on.
Okay, so now functional structuralism theory, what is it talking about? It sees society as a structure that it's made up of different parts. And please, don't mind the irregularities of this PowerPoint. You've not gotten it because I'm not done with it yet. So in case you just see anything, I've not looked at it a second time. This is just my first stuff. So this theory simply states that for a society, remember that we talked about our co-persons in our first semester writing in international relations, that you have to recognize the different parts of society. We have the family as a unit, we have the church as a unit, we have schools as a unit, we have political institutions as a unit, or political parties as a unit. We have all those different branches that make up a whole. That if there is a breakdown in one, it can lead to the breakdown in all. And I give an example, the NSAS, there was a breakdown in the police system, right? Police brutality, people don't want to see it again. And we had the NSAS protest and all that stuff. That is a example, like a classical example of structural functionalism theory right there. Identifying that there are different, structures to it. Another thing you can identify with structural functionalism is that the university, if ASU goes on strike, it affects other things. How people have planned, what people plan to do, it all affects other things. If somebody is sick now, different things. It just affects so many things. If ASU goes on strike, if the health sector goes on strike, it affects other things. That's a sector in the system that it affects.
Hello, ma. Okay,
Talk to me.
What you are saying now is that every structure has a function, and the function of every structure has an impact or a role to play in
on the whole. Exactly. If your hand is broken, your whole body will not function as it used to. Okay. What that hand does, the other part of your body will have to bear the body of it. And they might not be good. They might not be qualified to carry up that load. Now, when you think about modernization theory that states that if individuals in the country are educated, the government provides proper welfare, right? When you think about that theory that states all of that, that development will happen. You, being a sociologist, can bring out the flaws in that. That it worked for America, it does not mean it will work for Nigeria. It worked for the UK, does not mean it will work for Nigeria, because we are all unique. We don't have, we have a Department of Diaspora Commission. In the US, do they have Department of Diaspora Commission? They don't. So how are we going to work with all that separately, independently? So take note of structural functionalism theory. Now, conflict theory, you can see Karl Marx there, and you can see I put it in bold, bourgeoisie's polarity. Now, conflict theory looks at competition of limited resources amongst two different classes, the bourgeoisies and the proletariats, meaning that the bourgeoisies have the factors of production, they are the bosses, they have everything. And the proletariats are the workers, they have little or no choice. You know, they keep working, and that's how that system must exist. If you want to talk about development in the conflict perspective, you need to identify this. And under conflict theory, the theories that came out of development that you can use conflict theory to explain is the dependency theory and the classical Marxist theory, right? So now the dependency theory is stating that nations have not developed because of their colonial masters. They were suppressed, their colonial masters had everything, and that's why they are not developed. That's dependency theory. And that if you remove or you lose your connection with your colonial masters, the chances of you being developed is very high. That is what, you know, they are stating. According to classics Marxist debate, is also stating that for a society to be developed, that class struggle must be there. For us to have that conversation of development, we must acknowledge that there is a class struggle. Because if we don't acknowledge that there is a class struggle, then there's no need for development. There's no need for all these conversations about development. Okay, if there's no class struggle, why are we going to be saying women empowerment? They're already empowered. From modernization theory and what we know about, we've already taken this, we've taken these institutions in America, we've put it in Nigeria. Everybody now has good social welfare. Everybody has, you know, education, the examples that we're giving. So we shouldn't talk about development again. But these theorists are making a case and saying that there is still class struggle. So development will occur in this space. And we cannot just say modernization. So it's a criticism for modernization theory, if I may say, that the Karl Marxist perspective is saying that, are you guys not seeing that there's a class struggle? Okay, yes, even as you've given welfare, even as you've given education, there is still a class struggle, because some people are going to Harvard and some people are still going to community education. Yes, they are both educated, but both of them are exposed to two different classes already. So you cannot talk about development without talking about the class within it. And when we are talking about the core concerns of sociology, remember that the first thing that is on his course outline is social stratification. That people are of different class based on their income, their what was the other thing? I can't remember. Their income, their education level, and all those factors that affect what's put us in our different classes.
So when you think about conflict theory, you just think about, I like to put dependency theory in this as well, because when we think about decolonization, it's characterized within conflict, right? So struggle for resources, human beings, capital, labor, and all of those things were happening. So dependency is simply stating that if those things did not happen, and if it's still not happening till today, this minute, we would have been more developed than we are. Does that make sense? So have I answered your question?
Okay, now we're
Okay.
sorry, I don't know. I don't want people to be angry, or we are learning, because sometimes a lot of people will ask you, why is this man wasting our time? This. But it is better for you to know one thing and knowing many things without knowing anything. Because why I'm saying this thing, why I'm saying all these things is number one. When we are reading about all these theories, you will see that majority of all these things we are studying are pre-structured. The dominant or the developed countries structured this thing in a way that it will be like this, so that people will remain under them. Example, when I was like this conflict theory and what it says here, it is only says workers and the orga. And because of the differences between these two, there will always be a conflict. Conflict in the sense either increase our welfare, increase our wages, increase this or increase that. So there must be a demand, or those people that are gas will be demanding more time, more work from their workers. So there must be a misunderstanding in form of a conflict. And sometimes if you go to dependency theory, because you brought in dependency theory was a structured program or system by developed country, just either to dehumanize or to make developing countries to remain at the periphery and depend on them, because they are the core people making developing countries always depend on them. Like in this conflict theory, you will see that the bourgeois, that is the capitalists, are making more money. So, but my question is, now Karl Marx has said this is some of things that caused conflict, or this is the thing that brought about problem in a society. Then did he now recommend and say, okay, these are this or what we needed to do so that this kind of conflict or this dependency or these theories should not continue? Because it's not about telling us these are some of the things that are causing the conflict or the trouble. Did he make any attempt to say this and this are what we can do to solve this problem? That's my question.
So now, that is why we have, another theory criticizing, based on this now, another theory will be developed. So there's always a paradigm shift when, somebody has stated a theory and that theory does not apply, or the world has moved past that conversation. So when we talked about world systems theory, which is one of the theories of development, it talked about how we need to take note of political changes as well, and what is happening in the world and what we term as development. Even when we spoke about globalization, right? We talked about globalization and communication, widespread. And I gave an example that the world standard, after going to UN meetings and doing all this stuff, they come and tell us that for us to say a nation is developed, every citizen must have computers. Before we even go to the rural areas, they'll tell us that no, everybody has already gotten computers, so everybody has to get Apple laptops. So they already identified that there's an injustice within the system. And what Karl Marx's, what this classical Marxist debate is stating is that there's an injustice within the system, and that the whole world cannot be developed. Like, you cannot say that everybody should be developed, because at the end of the day, nobody will do anything for anybody. And there was this conversation about if we are all the, why should I struggle to go to work? Why should I struggle for a better life? Right? So they are not the ones to tell you what to do. And that's why theories like the China model and also the world systems theory saying that you should create things that are uniquely yours. You should create a system that are uniquely yours. Yes, there are countries that don't operate in that whole Google as this proliferate, but every society have all those class of people. Even communist societies, they have people that are richer, that have more wealth and all that. They'll always be on equal, citizenry. Like people in the country will not be of the same class at all times. So theories will not tell you, oh, this is what you should now do. A theorist will not come and tell you that, look at my theory like this, or these are the weaknesses of my theory. Because what I'm getting from your question is that we should, if they are giving us all these theories, they should also tell us the weakness from it. No, you have to look for another theory and just oppose it to the one that you're talking about to see that, okay, these are the strengths and these are the weaknesses. Every theory has its own weakness, and that is why someone else has built up another theory. So from modernization theory, people made the case that, okay, you're saying that we should bring in all these institutions and all this way of life of these Western nations, the UK and all of those places. Have you forgotten that we were colonized by these people and somehow they created the structures that we have? That's what dependency theory is stating from the weakness of modernization theory, that these people still have a hand in our country. And next thing, from dependency theory, we are pulling out world systems theory, stating that, okay, we understand what's going on, but you should also take note that you are not the only ones being colonized. India had that too, and they're developed, like, to a certain extent, right? They're having control of their stuff. When we are talking about social service markets, we look at India. So if you keep saying, oh, because of our development, the only thing stopping India is like their population, and they've not controlled it. Yes, they have a caste system, but look at them. They were also, so there are also countries that were, America too had their own phase of colonization. So if you're talking about, oh, dependency theory and all of that, you can find a way to break out. World systems theory is telling us that events can actually change that narration for you. You can actually be ranked up there. Okay, for example, we are talking about development and we are using different yardsticks for development and saying all about all that stuff. If we are not talking about nuclear weapons, we are going to talk about North Korea. But when we now look at the HDI, we might say, North Korea is not up there. But it is in some way, right? So that is argument for world systems, just opposing what dependency school have already said, right? So then we now have globalization coming in and saying, hey, you know what? You guys need to understand that this thing is not, is not black and white. So many things are happening. We don't even have control of as a system, as a government. Because remember, dependency theory, world systems theory, they are both, in fact, and modernization, no, let's say just those two. They are boldly stating that there should be a national plan. They are really making emphasis on government and, talking. But globalization is saying that, we don't have control of all these things. Yes, we are the government, but we have limited control of what is going on, because even before we say we don't want this news, it would have already gone round, and we might even lose control of the outcome of events. So I gave an example with George Floyd, that, okay, it was, on the internet, and before you knew it, everybody around the world, and before you knew it, everybody's protesting Black Lives Matter. So that's an example. So in that situation, what are we talking about? Remember, to understand development, you need to understand the HDI, GDP, and all those things. And people will say, why should that matter? And like, how did, something like George Floyd affect other things? it affected other people's economy. It affected America's economy because everybody's on the street protesting. Nobody is buying as they used to do. Like business that they've estimated is not going as they used to do. Is it affecting their development? Yes, in a way, because when we are talking about development, remember, development is not just one definition. We have development as economic growth. So you need to think about all those things. And if you're thinking about all these theories, just remember that you are not seeing it with the heart of an economist. You're not seeing it with the heart of a mathematician. You're seeing it with the heart of a sociologist. I want to talk about the welfare of the people. I want to talk about economic growth as what, or as development as all the definitions that we get, that we had earlier, economic growth, distributive justice, empowerment, freedom, what again? I can't remember all of them, but all those things, that's what you want to talk about. So if we are looking at all these theories, just think about it that, okay, the weakness of this theory have taken us to this other theory. Just keep moving like that. Am I making sense? I feel like I'm all alone here.
Hello.
Who's here? Let me see.
Hello.
Yes, I'm with you.
Abeg, what
You
is
are
your,
doing well.
what is your first degree? What jobs do you have your first degree?
Sociology.
Sociology, okay. You know why I asked?
Why?
Good. Why I asked is this. You see, I'm impressed, very impressed, very, very impressed.
Some
You know,
accolades, please. Champagne for me.
so I'm very, because when you know what you're explaining or when you know what you're teaching, it gives you confidence, even in the way you respond to questions. These are some of the things we have been encouraging people here. You can start small, you get there. Nobody's perfect, but when you practice, you get to where you're going. You see, why I asked many questions sometimes is there are many things I may know, but I will still ask a question and I don't, as if to say I don't know it. Are you getting what I'm saying? So for people to truly know, it's not a question of saying, I have my master's in this thing, sociology of development. When they ask you a small question, you will not even know what to say. Because why I asked this thing you are explaining to us is the origin of what we call cognitive theories. You know, one theory, I just asked you a question, why is it that those things are not telling us what to do, which we all know that they cannot tell you. It is another theory that will criticize that one and bring their own, which leads to development we are talking about. So, and every theory, as we know, has a flaw or has an issue one way or the other. So it's only when you're able to get that loophole, then you can now be able to create your own theory, which makes the theory to continue. Like what we did in international relations when we did about liberalization, realist, idealism, Marxism, hegemony, and all these things is from one state to the other, Marxism, you know? So I'm impressed and very, very impressed because this theory, I did conflict and I know what it means. And I asked you a question, what brought about this conflict? And the way you explained it to me, I can now sleep very well, but I will not dream. Let people not say another thing. So keep it up, you're doing well. My enemies are plenty here. So they will always read what I'm saying. They will now say, why am I praising you like this? I know many of them are just there trying to suspect me, but you are doing well. I'm impressed.
Chief, me, I'm not suspecting you. My husband said the same thing last week. He wanted to say the same thing this night. I'm like, hello, he's the same person. I beg. I'm jealous already. You're doing well.
Thank you.
I didn't say anything. No.
Chief, he said a lot. Me, I add.
You didn't hear anything from my mouth.
Well done.
Please continue. If time
so, Okay. So everybody, like, you guys get, oh, amen. Thank you. Okay, so I want to believe that like everybody's clear on the theory stuff. It's actually important to me that you guys, know this stuff. Do you guys have any question?
Okay, so Khatumi, thank you. I didn't start when the class. I didn't join rather when the class started. But I'll go through it, the recording later when it's posted. So I have question. I'll definitely ask.
Okay, no problem.
I just joined actually, so let me not drag us back. Thank you.
Okay, all right, no problem. Okay, so let me just complete. So the third theory is the symbolic interaction theory. It's on a micro level, it looks at, interactions between human beings, the symbols, their communication style, and, the criticism of that is that it doesn't pay enough attention to social institution and structural constraint. So from a symbolic interaction perspective, we can be saying that, oh, these people act a certain way, you can look at culture and all those, in which is it the political class that we did that we're talking about tangible and intangible, all those kind of aspects or something like that. So you look at all those culture things that you cannot touch, all those things, how people talk, their mannerism, and it just make, conclusion about whatever is going on with them, right? Without looking at the okay, are these people acting this way because there's a penalty or there's a punishment for this behavior, right? So nothing is coming top of my head now as an example for that. But what I gave, when I had this class was the NSAS. I used that. So understanding sociology theory, like I use the NSAS movement. So from a structural functionalist perspective, you say, oh, the reason why we had NSAS was because there was a breakdown of an institution. So that's why it resulted to that chaos that happened. A conflict theorist will come and say, no, that's what you see. Don't you know that SARS and all these people, they don't stop people that are of a certain class. So this is happening because there's a class difference. It is mostly poor people that are being, harassed by police. Okay, how many times do you see that they harass, like, let's say a celebrity, a government official, they start naming people that fall under like the high class and all of that, right? That's what a conflict theorist will say. A symbolic interactionist will come and say, I understand that, the police have done this, and I understand that there's a class difference. I get that. But did you guys also notice that that's not all that was being talked about in the NSAT? We saw people that came out for LGBTQ. We saw people that came out for unemployment. We saw rape survivors there. We saw people that have not been able to enter university. That means there is a problem. Like, there are different interests within society that needs to be addressed. We should not just address, oh, let us reform the police. We should not just address, let's talk about this class divide and all of that stuff. And there are so many numerous examples, especially for the conflict theorists that will talk about the class difference. So the breaking of malls in that mall that is at Jakonde on the island, before Agungi, that mall that is at Osapa, that spa that used to be there, is locked down. And people will say, oh, when you were building spa and you were building ShopRites in all those areas, you didn't take note of the slums around it, right? You build something that is for a higher class where low class is. So when there's a conflict, they'll automatically pounce on, the rich people. And you hear things like, oh, people were trying to jump into VGC to rob them during the NSAS protest. So people, these are, the views from different sociologists part of it, and they are all right, depending on how they can defend it. So anytime you're seeing theories of development in sociology, think about these three perspectives and think about where it's coming from. There are some articles that you read about modernization and you keep seeing structure in between it. Independency too, you might, see structure there, and you can also see conflict as well. You will just be seeing these little things. And from your core knowledge, like when I started, I said, if you want to first, as a sociologist, know these three and know it well. No matter how they bring the conversation about, development, you can argue. Then we talked about these four theories: modernization theory, dependency theory, world systems theory, and globalization. When I work on these slides, I'll share with you guys. For now, they are premature, but when I work on it, and I'm going to add the remaining two that I talked about today, to it. So if you have any questions, for those that were not in class, because some people have stated that, oh, when you took these theories, I wasn't here. I'm just going to rush it through quickly. At least we still have a little time. So now, modernization theory, three major events resulted to modernization theory. The first event was the rise of the United States as a superpower. The second event was the spread of the communist movement. And the third event was the disintegration of European colonial empires. So meaning that, the independence that everybody was getting, right? So according to modernization theory, modern society are more productive, children are better educated, and the needy receives more welfare. That's what modernization theory states. It also talks about features of modern society. It says that there is a differentiation in political structure. Remember what I said, when you see somebody that is building on structural functionalism, you will see things like structure, function, you will see all those things in between it, right? So differentiation in political structure, circulation of political culture, and it enhances capacity of society political system. So this is taking note of system is structure. So it's another way of saying structure, right? So it's taking note of, okay, a modern society is a society that we should pay close attention to the structures, their institutions, their system. You hear people making arguments and say, America works because they have a system. Like they have, you're saying that country is well structured. That's you making, a case for America based on their system and their structure. So the major assumption of modernization theory of development, basically are like, just think about the Rostow's 5 phases. I think I put it there. Okay, yes. So from the past questions, which I said I'm going to be addressing, like when I'm taking class and I see something that is in the past question, modernization theory, but in the past question, he said that we should explain it in the context of Nigeria. So when you're thinking of Rostow's 5 stages of development, just think about it in the context of Nigeria. The first stage, we are dependent on rural economy. The second stage, we are dependent on social appreciation of education and skill development. Third stage, we are dependent on suburban economy. Fourth stage, dependent on growth of developed economies. And the fifth one is dependent on global economy or market managing economy. So just think about it in the context of Nigeria. So when we are talking about what were we talking about last week? The core concerns of sociology. Remember, I kept on giving us examples about Nigeria, because in his past questions, he always wants us to write it in his context. So modernization assumption, right? Modernization is a systematic process. Remember, I said systems, institutions. Modernization is a transformative process. So you think about Rostow's 5 model. modernization is an imminent process due to systematic and transformative nature, meaning that you cannot say you will not develop one way or the other. And remember, globalization theory already tells us that there are some things that are outside of our control. So this is just, a part of it. So let's say globalization and modernization, they agree on this, that, there'll be transformation. So even if we are saying that, oh, we still have our cultures and tradition, by the time you open your internet and you see that people are slapping their parents, you just one day try, just slap the parents. Then some parents will react, some parents will not react. Before you know it, it has got into our culture. Before you know it, we are changing the ways we are doing things and all of that stuff. So globalization is making us aware of that. So this is for modernization. Then the strengths of modernization theory. It addresses the possible role of economic development in democracy or democratized third world nations. It assumes that third world nations are traditional and that Western countries are modern, which, if you think about it with this China model, it is not true. Every country is unique for itself. Then another strength is the methodology, right? It's a generic study, right? It talks about like stable economies or stable countries, political stability and all of that. It takes note of all of that. But I think it has a criticism. Yeah. So, like I said, this thing is not well put together. I'll put it together later for you guys. I'll share the articles that I used and all of that stuff. So it does not talk about, ethnocentrism. It doesn't talk about a country's uniqueness, a country's culture and all of that. The second thing, modernization perspective shows only one possible model of development. So it doesn't, if you pay attention to it, it doesn't take note of, oh, there can be, a world order that would just push the US and UK into pure darkness. It doesn't take note of that. Another thing is that it doesn't see, development advances in countries like Taiwan and South Korea, right? Because it doesn't look at their kind of government as governments that will bring about development or progress in their country. Because remember, they are saying that, okay, you have to take US institution and be like them. Another set of criticism is that third world nations don't have homogeneous set of traditional values. So that's what I've been saying over and over again, that countries are not unique in their own standard. So this dependency theory, this a little bit, long, fleshy, whatever it is, but I'm just going to rush through it. So dependency theory came about from Latin America and the Caribbean, and it talked about 8 principal things and 8 conditions for development within a country. The first thing is stated is that you must be able to control the monetary exchange. You need to place more emphasis on fiscal rather than monetary policies, meaning that we just wake up every morning and see dollar has changed. Nigeria does not have any control over that. A country that is developed should have control and access. And you see people even manipulating figures with the OPEC and all of that stuff. So the oil pricing, and they'll say, oh, it's because of oil price, that's why Nigeria is like that. For you to be developed, this is something that you should have control over, right? The second thing is you need to promote an effective governmental role in terms of national development. So your government needs to be very, very involved. They need to create a standard. Then you need to create a platform of investments, giving a preferential role to national capitals. And when I was talking about this, I talked about Dubai, that you as a Nigerian, or Qatar, for instance, you as a Nigerian, you can't go to these countries and say that you want to own more than the citizen. It's not possible. Yes, start your company there, but the larger share or the larger percentage of whatever the company is bringing is for their citizen. That alone will promote a lot of economic growth within the country and also giving empowerment to that family. And remember when we talked about social stratification and different class, and remember when we talked about poverty, and just see how all these things break down. And that's why I said I wish that we took core sociology concerns first before we talked about these theories. But I hope you guys still understand how they all relate. Then to allow entrance of external capital from following priorities. So when we put down our national plans, when we are collecting money, or when we are collecting foreign investments and all those things, we have a priority as a nation. So I use an example. America has American dream. They know where they are going. China too, they have their focus. Anything that does not meet their national plan, their national agenda, they will not embrace it. You will not force them to bend. And that's what dependency theory, that's the principle it's trying to bring about. Then it promotes an effective internal demand. So meaning that people internally should be able to patronize homemade goods and all of those stuff. Then generate a larger internal demand, increase in wages of workers. Remember that if the nationals are having high percentage, remember in creating platform number 3, workers' salary will go high, right? So we are going to start talking about development as economic growth. Development as economic development in its definition. Then to develop effective coverage of social services. Remember that modernization theory, they are saying that for a country to be termed as developed, they have all the social welfare. Then number 8, to develop national strategies, a model for importation and all those stuff. Don't just import everything. Don't be strategic about what you're doing. That's where dependency theory stemmed from. You know that when I was talking about modernization theory, I stated where it stemmed from, that because US became national power and all of that stuff. And this is just the same way dependency theory, this is what it stemmed from. Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbeans. So dependency theory, it talks about, some elements of neo-Marxist perspective, right? So even in the course outline, he puts /neo-Marxist perspective, and he recognizes it embodies 4 major points. 1, to develop an important internal effective demand in domestic markets. The second one is to recognize that industrial sector is crucial to achieving better level of national development. The third one, to increase workers' income. And the fourth one, to promote more effective government role. I'm going to share this slide, like I've said. You can read it and understand it how you want. And remember that, see, problems are already occurring. What's happening? You are screen sharing. Oh, I wanted to start explaining. Aha. So that's why I stopped in doing my slides. I'm not done. So when I'm done, but why is it like this though? Let me see. I want to believe that. So this is the first one that we did. I want to believe that this is not just my session. World systems theory actually talks about changes in political systems or political engagement in the world, political stability, and how they affect development. So I'll give you an example. When we are looking at, HDI and all those stuff, no country is coming to my mind, but you guys can, remind. Should we use Libya? So Libya was, no, let's not use Libya. I like to speak with facts. Okay, no country is coming to my mind now, but let's imagine before the Vietnam War, right? Vietnam was a very developed nation and all that stuff. Now, modernization theory doesn't take note of the fact that something can happen in the world and change everything. Dependency theory is not taking note of that, but world systems theory is saying that if they go to war with another nation, they can bomb their country, and all those institutions and all those things that we built, they will not exist anymore. nothing will happen. We'll just be there. We are going to start all over again. They're going to term us as underdeveloped, forgetting that events have happened that have caused what's going on. We were once developed. Who are we going to tell? So world systems theory is stating that we should, as sociologists, as development experts, we should also take into consideration things that are happening around the world that have adjusted our own development. We should not just blame it on, oh, our government is not taking other people's advice, or leaving our colonial masters. There are some things that are outside their scope or outside their control. So sometimes when you're having arguments with your friends talking about why Nigeria is not doing well, they'll say, oh, Buhari cannot control all these things that are going on. Can't you see what's happening in the world? Price of oil. So that's what world systems theory is basically telling us, that when we want to talk about development, we should also think about world events. Then the globalization piece of things, stating that globalization is mostly about, spread of information and engagement with, like, international engagement across borders. There are so many definitions around globalization. You can decide which one you want to take. And it's just stating that, okay, there is globalization happening around the world, and it will influence what development looks like in every country. I understand that there is spread of technology, but do we have the technological know-how? So meaning that everybody is holding a smartphone today, but do they know what they can actually do with that smartphone and how that can impact development? You said that everybody should have a computer. Computer literacy is good. Do you know, like, how many countries would have access to all of that? Yes, they might have it, but is it really affecting, development? All those things, are part of the conversation when you're talking about globalization and development. Then again, before I call it a day, the China model. I'm coming back to it. Now, the Chinese model of development is stating that, okay, first, there is no one definition for it. What it only means is that it argues that there are no good democracies and there are no bad autocracies, meaning that you cannot just say and say, take all this from this country. That every country, they are unique in their own ways. And as Chinese government, we are traditional and that we are unique. Don't try to impose or sanction us over our own mode of operation, thinking yours is good. And for them, they have 4 main focus. Number one, state-led development. That the development, so state-led, remember that when we're talking in our international relations class, state does not mean Abia, does not mean Edo State, does not mean Lagos State. State means country. So country-led development, that is development that we are seeking for, is for the country, is our decision. Remember dependency theory stating that, dependency theory is telling us that we need to have national plan, right? So this is an agreement. They agree. Theories will build up on each other. So they're picking that, okay, yes, we agree with you that yes, we should have our own. A country should be unique. Another second thing for them as their focus is development as top priority, right? Yes, it is state-led, but it should be a top priority, right? And development means different things. So even if they say development as top priority, it's now left to you to decide that, okay, are they doing development as empowerment? Are they doing development as freedom? Because when you look at freedom, you now start saying, okay, what about the press? What about the right to citizenship? All those different things, right? So you start thinking about what they mean by, development as top priority. For China, development as top priority is their economic growth, That is what they're looking at. That's what the country wants. The third focus is focus on good governance. That they've looked at the Lee Kuan Yew's model of operation. Let us sanction people that are in public office that are using public goods for their own personal gain. Remember that last class we talked about prebendalism and talking about how public officials are using public funds to satisfy their own needs. That is a core concern for sociologists in the terms of development. Now, why is it that the people are not developed? Is it because the public officials are actually taking the money that are meant for them for selfish interests? So Chinese model is saying that we are going to put an end to that corruption. You are looking at America when America is like one of the corrupt nations in the world, but you're not saying anything about it because you term them as Western. The fourth focus for them is gradual and pragmatic reform. Yes, we know that a part of us is underdeveloped, but you cannot rub it in our face. We'll take it one step at a time. For now, we don't think freedom is what is important for our development. We think that economic growth is important for our development. How we calculate that is nobody's business, but that is what we are focusing on. That is what we want to do as a nation. I understand your development theory. I understand how, I understand my limitations and what works against me. But as a nation, we are unique in our own stand, and that is what we want to do. Now, I don't think I mentioned the limitations to the China model. Now, a limitation to that is that critics have said that within, please hold on. Sorry, I have a baby. The Chinese model, a limitation to that is that they forget that their model is, can work against party states, and it also demands for radical change. And that might not always be a good approach for their citizens. It also means that sometimes their practice is unclear, meaning that it's not a system that is carrying the people along, right? So that's why they say, oh, autocratic rule, and and that, of course, is coming from a liberalist point of view, that this approach is not, the best and all that. Then again, it's also one of the criticism is that even with all this, the economic growth and all of that, they face a lot of challenges in terms of development and development models. So if they want to make more argument, they'll say, oh, how they handle the COVID virus and all those things. If they were more structured like America, all those things would have not happened. All those arguments will now come up because of their model of development. And remember, not just anybody can come into their system, right? It's a well-calculated, well-planned out system. And that's why that is. So I take a bow, my people. I think I've refreshed our memory about all of this. The next time, I want to hear from you guys. Like, should I talk about the assignments that the guy gave us? Should I talk about it on Wednesday? How we go about it? Should that be a class, or I should just go ahead and talk about, like, still the course
outline? An assignment.
Yeah, he gave us an assignment that we'll submit.
Yes, please talk about it.
Okay. So I'll talk about it the next class that we are having.
Who is playing music? Now let me ask question.
Oh yeah, ask.
Now, in comparison, now if they say compare these theories of social development with that of Chinese model, what can we say is the difference between the two?
Okay. The first thing I will start with is, first, the Chinese model recognizes, so the first Chinese model recognizes homogeneous mode of operation within states, which other theories don't recognize, right? So for example, modernization theory is just stating that if every country is moving like America and the UK, development will occur. So that's the first thing to say.
Please come again.
It's like she has the network problem or something like that. I don't know.
Okay.
I didn't know it was on mute. Did you guys hear the modernization stuff I gave, the differences that I gave?
No, we didn't.
You didn't, hey, Chineke God. Okay, so China recognizes homogeneous societies, meaning that societies that are unique to their own culture, tradition, their own way, right? Which modernization theory does not pay attention to. That's the first difference. Another difference is development as top priority. For China, for the China model, is their economic development and growth. While for other nations, or when you compare it to what globalization is saying, or modernization, they are talking about social welfare, right? As part of it, even if they are still talking about economic growth, but one of their, China's one is their top priority, but this one is not their top priority. Remember, education, if you think about education, is social welfare, right? Yeah. Another one, China is focused, like the Chinese model tackles corruption, tackles issues around corruption, but other theories don't have, you know, a strategic plan to tackle corruption. Now, this is top of my head, hot seat, answering these different questions, right? So if I go back and think about it, I might come back and say, hey guys, I said something that didn't add up. So,
please, I will start giving you on hot seat. I beg, maybe
so
maybe today I'm here. I became a problem. I'm sorry.
No, I actually like it. No, seriously, to be honest, I actually prefer it because sometimes I feel like I'm saying, you know, the things that God don't want me to say. But yeah, so another one for China, the China model, they acknowledge a gradual and pragmatic reform. But for globalization, for world system, and for modernization, somebody might think I hate that theory, but it just keeps coming up. They don't have like a gradual and pragmatic reform, you know, structure. For them, it is more like process. I think one of the theories actually mentioned it, Roscoe's 5 stages, right? But for China model, it's talking about gradual and pragmatic reform, that let's just, you know, we take it, you know, at our own pace.
Did the China model recognize structural functionalism or functional structuralism also? Did the China model recognize that?
So if I'm to look as a sociologist, which I might be wrong, and I say, okay, let me really study the China model, I would think about it as symbolic interaction, because remember that I said, which you can come back and, you know, argue with me, it's fine. Where is it? Dun, 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 dun. I said symbolic interaction, right? We are not paying attention to social institutions and social constraints. And in the China model, and thinking about it like this, we're thinking about it in global perspective. We're not thinking about other institutions that exist. We're not thinking about social institutions that exist. We're not thinking about the social constraint or the structural constraint that exists. Remember that with the Chinese model, they can still be sanctioned. Right? They'll say, oh, because China did not agree to this bill or to this deal or to this mode of operation or whatever it is, we're going to sanction them, right? And they cannot agree. And it doesn't move them, it's their business, because they have their own way of doing stuff. It has to benefit them. They have their own interests. So remember that, you know, symbolic interaction is on a micro level, is smaller. It's human interaction is unique to a people. It's mostly about people's culture, people's uniqueness, people's way of doing their own things, how people want to, you know, organize themselves. Now, think about it in the context of world and global politics, right? Remember how we talked about system, like structural functionalism in terms of global politics and world politics, saying that, oh, we cannot carry American structure and come and drop one. We talked about conflicts and, you know, some countries are better than others. Some countries have things, even within global systems, we need to recognize that some countries are, you know, some countries are the workers, some countries are the capitalists, right? We need to recognize that that is happening in the global system as well. Now, we should do the same for symbolic interaction theory. We should think about it like that. This is top of my head, me thinking about it, right? This is what I would think it is. This is how I would see it. And that's, if I'm a symbolic interactionist at this point, that is how I'm going to make my argument. I've convinced you and not confused you.
Others can, we are following you. Have short. The food I have ate this evening, I've digested very well. Others can ask now. Let us learn.
So how do we react to symbols, like in this symbolic interaction theory? You mentioned that both verbal and non-verbal, and to symbols. Like I'm trying to picture like that symbols. Like what do you actually mean by that?
Okay, how I understand it, right, is that during the apartheid movement, there was a period, I think 1994, I don't know. I don't want to give you guys wrong dates. Now, the families came together and said, you know what? We are not going to buy from the stores. Anybody that wants to go to the stores to buy anything, go and buy anything that you want, do anything that you want. But and they did it in December period. I don't know if anybody knows that gist. Does anybody know the gist around what I'm talking about?
I don't know. Go ahead now.
Now, wow. I need to look for all these links and share with you guys. Okay, so people now demonstrated that their voice needs to be heard by showing that they have the economic power. So from a certain period in December of that year, they did not buy anything from the stores. Nothing was happening. Nobody was, not even oil, like nobody was buying anything. And the government felt it. There was a dent in their economic growth, or whatever, you know, we can call it. There was a curve. They could see it. There was a curve. They could see it and they could feel it, that, okay, something has happened. That is symbolic interaction right there. The people have used, so symbol doesn't really mean that, oh, carry a placard and write, you know how you get on traffic and you say, okay, green is go and all that. It doesn't simply mean that in sociology, right? You can do it. That's why they say symbolic interaction. because it's human interaction, both verbal and non-verbal. You're taking action, you're making decisions, you're doing.
Can we use something like remarkable? Hello?
Can you use something like what?
Remarkable. Is it showing something that happened? You know, something you make a reference. This thing you are saying now, you know, you are making a reference to an event that happened so and so time. So can this symbolic be something like an event or a remarkable something that happened? No, I don't know. Maybe my question is confusing also.
So I have this book, right? The Politics of Nonviolent Action, the Methods of Nonviolent Actions. And in this book, there are a lot of symbolic interaction events that have happened that, so another example is when you're talking about conflicts, like conflict resolutions and all those things, and they talk about nonviolent actions, there are so many. The book is written by Jean Sharp, and you know, it talks about let me look for one right here. So consumers boycott.
Post the name. Later post the name.
Okay, let me
later
start with the, oh my God, I look so shabby, but this is the book. Can you guys see it? Me, I don't have strength. I'll post the book like tomorrow or next Saturday. No, I'm just helping my life. Can you guys see it?
Yeah, we are seeing it, but it's fainting. Let her post it, I beg.
Okay, I'm going to, let me off my video. So it talks about, the story I just gave you guys is right here. Consumers boycotts is there. Rent withholding is another one. Refusal of rent is another one. Like these are non-violent actions, but like economic non-cooperation. And that's a symbolic interaction move right there, because you're doing, you know, it's both verbal and non-verbal. So symbols can be, somebody can be talking to you and you just write that you're not answering, or all those placards you see during protests. Yeah, that's another example, you know, of symbols, because then it says what you represent or what you're there for. So when you see all of us, we are going to end SARS protests, but you see people carrying placard of LGBTQ and you're like, oh, wait, these are other interests. They are saying end SARS with you, but they are holding something else. So that's symbolic interaction right there. Does that make sense? 221. Let me give you guys the exact event. I don't know who asked that question. Did it help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, various consumer widespread Russia. Just know these American examples. It's not gonna help us. So yeah. Any other question? Any other questions?
I don't think there's any for now from my own side. I think we have done well for today.
Please, are you going to share this slide?
I will.
Thank you.
Any other? I'm browsing an example of symbolic interaction. Let me see what will come out. Let me see if I have central idea, symbolic.
I actually saw something that said an image of a stick figure with a dress means a woman. An image of a stick figure without a dress means a man. Like that's like example of symbolic.
Okay, yes. So the things that you see hanging on the toilet door, those are symbols as well. So when you see that, nobody is telling you that they've made this toilet unisex, but you now get to the door and you see that is half male, half female, you already know. That's symbolic interaction. They've interacted with you. They don't need to have that conversation with you. They've told you already. So you can't go and sue somebody that, oh, I was in the toilet as a lady and I saw a man in, that's on you. That's symbolic interaction. And here it says that the way people make sense of social worlds. How you see somebody dressing and you just attach something to it is under symbolic interaction. Even if we have it under, okay, no. I wanted to say we have it under deviant behavior and all that, but no. I won't use that as an example here. But yeah. So maybe we've all agreed that next class I'll address the assignment.
Which means that the way some people dress can be a symbol or a sign to come in or to go out, is that?
But feminist theory will tell you that that's on you.
Okay, because I know what we call invitation to treat. So sometimes let us know some of these symbols. So if some people
when you talk about dress code, and that's why when you see somebody dressed in police uniform, you already know how to accord them. So in this case, when you're talking from a feminist perspective and saying that, oh, how somebody dressed, then they'll now ask you that, is there a uniform to that invitation to treat? Is there a uniform to that? So a feminist will have that argument with you based on that.
But you have the opportunity to assume that this can be.
No, you don't. So
I don't agree with that. Your dress code does not really mean, okay, that is who you are, or okay, because I'm wearing a bikini now, does that give someone the right to come and touch me? No, I don't agree with.
So invitation to treat is very different from like symbolic interaction.
Okay.
Symbolic interaction is making a sense of your social world. And when you move it to, personalizing things, it's like invading the person's personal space, personal value, and all of that.
Okay. That's why
in development theory, we have feminist theory too, but people like I didn't see it in his paper, so maybe, it's not there, but it's a big deal.
I know sociologists are about society and how we should live in the society because there's disorder or order. But what I'm saying is that symbolic interaction means when you see a symbol, you can reason towards that symbol and give it a meaning. Is it not so?
Yeah.
So all those guys dressing anyhow to come to class, teach them what is symbolic. They are giving us signs. So that's where I'm going. So, and if somebody reason based on their dresses and
if I may ask, Chief, what kind of sign are they giving?
I don't know. It depends on it. You see, that's
I'm speaking for my gender. How are they dressing?
That's why the lecturer now. That's why the lecturer we are telling us now, we should go and study functional structuralism. That's how institution functions. So if you were wearing trousers, is function of the trousers. If we are wearing bikini or wearing mini, is functions of the mini. So I know what the functions of mini means. So that's I'm learning. I'm just a learner as assuming and relating it to the lecture this evening because sociology is about society and how people relate. And the
so far, I've not seen anyone dress anyhow to the class. I said, so far, I've not seen anyone dress anyhow to the class.
One girl was wearing spaghetti to the class. I don't know what
I was not in class that day, so I can't really say she was actually wearing a spaghetti because, in all honesty, I was not in class, so I don't know. I only heard about it.
Don't worry.
But that man had no right to do that, if you ask me.
At all. Yeah. As an adult, once you are older, once you are more than 14, 16, I don't think anybody.
Let me say something about it, right? if you are, if we started that class and he set ground rules,
Exactly.
and she came into the class dressed like that, I would say, okay, she was wrong.
Exactly.
You didn't set
exactly.
ground rules, right? And we've been operating like that since we started the program. You have no rights.
At
And
all.
when they talk about the handbook, no, let me state, when they talk about the handbook and dress code, they did not talk about it in terms of lecture. They talked about it in terms of the school premises. And again, like coming in, and if she passed through that gate and nobody said anything, that means the fault, the flaw started from that gate.
Yeah.
So nobody has the right, because from the gates, they should have told her to turn back. Then when we started the class, lecturers should learn how to give ground rules. Don't
like
come
see
into
the
my
way
class after
the
30
comparative
minutes.
foreign policy lecturer, he gave what he wants and what he doesn't want. So there are some
Exactly.
things, if we do that, we know that okay, we are absolutely wrong.
Exactly. Don't come to my class so and so time. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do that. You yourself, in your heart of hearts, you know. Not that you will come and be embarrassing somebody because you have one my power.
Guys, can I say something?
Please speak.
Can I say something? You know, what I've noticed in life is that when you are on the other side, it is as easy as ABC to criticize decisions. I always tell people, in everything on earth, it's just because human beings sometimes they misbehave. Somebody told me the reason why we have sociologists is because of disorder in the society. When there is a disorder in the society, a sociologist will come and put it in the order, tell us what to do. One, there is a code of conduct for everything on earth, no matter people overlook certain things. It is expected without being told, right from primary school, when you enter school, the dressing code of a student, not minding that today people just do anything because of westernization or globalization we are doing. You see a lot of people go to class, they say, it doesn't matter, I behave anyhow. But when you see the same person going to church, the same person will behave and dress somehow. Even the person will condemn herself and say, no, I will not take this into church. What I'm only trying to say is that when you are out of a classroom, you can be anything you like and dress anyhow you like. But if you are coming, don't be a distraction to others. Do you know that sometimes some dressings people dress are even the lecturer? I don't see. Sometimes we're human beings. It's just because when you're on the other side, you know the implications of certain things. You may be doing something, believing that this not doing it doesn't matter, it doesn't make anything, but you are a problem to many people. If you are coming to the class, what prevents you from dressing well at least for 2 hours? Why are you exposing that? Why are you dressing in this? See, some of these clothes we are wearing here, the whites or the Westerners are wearing it because of their weather or because of their environment. It's not just that they are wearing it because they want to wear it. But here, you see a girl, your breast is shown, everything is shown, and you are going to a classroom where you want people like me that are tempted to concentrate and read. Don't you know you have already shortened my school fees?
Okay, Chief, can I add something to that?
Yes.
About this dressing, I think the thing is fine. I understand where you're coming from, but I think it all comes back to it is in our hearts. I remember sometimes ago when I went to the Holy Land. Holy Land, they have strict dress code and all. So I can't wear anything short. Like I'm always covered. When I say covered, up to like head to toe covered. There was a particular man that he said he has been praying that ever since he set his eyes on me at the airport, he has been praying that I should be single because he wants to settle down with me because the backside alone attracted him. Like, it wasn't my dressing. How he saw that, I still don't understand. I was fully covered. So sometimes I think people just see what they are not supposed to see. I understand that some things causes distraction, like you said. But sometimes, even if you dress like most appropriate way or okay, let's say all those kids, like you hear someone rape a 5-year-old, 10-year-old. How does a 5-year-old dress? What attracted someone to raping a 5-year-old? Can you understand what I'm saying?
Personally, I've had a very, bad experience. So when I was in my undergraduate, in fact, I started covering my hair because of this guy. So I'm a Muslim, right? So, and I don't cover my hair. This guy, he said, if you like, cover from now till tomorrow. It's your business.
Can you see that?
He will press me to the wall, do all sorts to me, like the PTSD from that experience. You don't even want to know, like post-traumatic stress disorder. Like I can't even stay with a guy in a room. Like a lecturer, he will lock the door. He carried me to his fellow lecturers and said, Kadiri is my girlfriend. They'll always tell him, Kadiri, yeah, you are not of the same level. She will teach you. It's not nonsense. And that was like, he even told other lecturers to fail me so that I have extra year. But because I knew a professor, I went to meet him. I'm like, see, I heard that I'm having extra year. And he made them to bring out my scripts one by one, like everybody. And that was how I graduated. Now, imagine people that don't have that kind of relationship with other professors. Imagine people that truly, genuinely, I'm not saying that, amongst us, there are no people that are on the left side. There are. But if they come, go and meet them. But those ones that are not coming to you, leave them alone. You can't tell me that do you know how many fine men I see every day? So when people tell me things about, it's tempting, to be honest, and I'm sorry, the first thing I like to say is it is very irresponsible. How will you just and say something is tempting you? Why?
You have to be disciplined.
Yeah, the way I used to see fine guys and the way I used to choke my eye. Oh my God, I want to toast all of them.
No. You are getting everything wrong. You see,
explain.
When you go to the market, inside let us use Barugo market. Some people came for clothes. Some people came for garri. Some people came for torchlights. Some people came for different items. Are you getting what I'm saying?
I'm with you.
Now, many people that are coming to the classes, even this class we are doing, some are there to receive lecture. Some are there to look for friends. Some are there to look for those that they will socialize with. Everybody is coming with different intentions.
Yeah, although I was there to look for Razak, I found him, so I'm not doing it again.
Good. So, but all of us are coming with the intention that we are coming to the class. And you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but you see what is in our mind is not different. One, every human being, like you may see 20 guys that are handsome. They will not tempt you. But you cannot tell me that there is no guy that has ever tempted you since you know men. One person might have tempted you, or one person you must have seen one you loved. Why should you love that one? That time, your mindset and your love life or everything about you are prepared for that. That is why when you saw that one, you're able to love it. It's like somebody who is a believer. You see some people, they will say, I'm now born again. That day was not the first day you heard about the scripture. That day was not the first day you heard about preaching. They might have been preaching for you for many years, and it doesn't make any sense to you. But one day, something may happen, and it will be a day you will now say, oh, let me hear this word, or God wanted it in that way. So what we are only trying to tell people is that
now I get it.
There are dangers on earth, but don't prepare yourself to be a prey. Don't prepare, because in the understanding or the mindset of a human being, okay, there is a way self, as a girl, maybe you laugh with a boy or you laugh with some people very well. They will even assume that you are cheap. Some will even be assuming in their heart that, it's like this girl loved me, even when such a thing is not in your mind at all. But the way you behave or you chat with those people, may even be, that is why you see some people, they will tell you that, oh, but oh boy, this girl have been laughing with me, I've been gisting with this girl, I've been doing everything with this girl. But I now chase the girl and the girl refused. Why? The person
You
has
guys should see the
assumed.
person that is eating all my money.
Wow. Hello.
Our lecture
Hello.
Let's see his face now.
Don't press anything.
is looking at
Very cute.
the camera.
Thank you, my ovaries.
So
You're
the boy
welcome.
never sleep by this time. So what I'm saying is that, please advise any girl that is coming to class.
Hello, Chief.
Razak don't pursue all of us.
Okay. Bye-bye.
You can't have that.
Bad belly. That
No,
Razak
you
is
can't.
bad belly.
No. Is it still recorded?
Shit. Good
Oh
night.
my
There are
God.
people that are there that
No,
will
Razak
never
can't
graduate
post
with
it.
others. They will have. So
Say good night. Say thank you for coming for my TED Talk.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice night.
You can't have that. Put down your hands. All right. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Nice. Thank you.